On Sunday, Ukrainians will head to the polls amid growing clashes between armed forces and separatists in the eastern regions. Joining us with more on this is Boris Zilberman. He's the deputy director at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. And Mr. Zilberman, we hear in the news that just yesterday, 16 people killed in clashes. Do you have any optimism that this is going to unfold in some sort of peaceful, amicable way?
I think the way the escalation on the ground is happening is you'll see more of these clashes. There were more deaths today and more clashes between pro-Ukrainian forces, Ukrainian National Guard, and pro-Russian separatists. And I think you'll see that escalate in attempts to disrupt the voting on Sunday. So I don't see a lot of optimism, certainly not in the short term.
And so someone will be elected, someone will win. It seems like Poroshenko is the front runner. He may very likely win, whether or not it's in this one or in a runoff follow-up vote later on, a couple weeks later. President Putin there in the clip saying he's going to respect the wishes, work with whoever wins. We've heard things he said before that don't necessarily turn out to be true. Do you have faith that he's going to follow through on that commitment?
To be perfectly frank, no. I think his statements fall squarely in the category of I'll believe it when I see it. Just like in the past couple of days, they said they were going to remove their troops off or pull back their troops off the Ukrainian border. And just today, you saw comments from the Russian military basically slow walking that, saying that it might take 20 days. And you see a kind of a reversal of that statement already. So until it really happens, I put very little credence to what President Putin has said.
Here's a little thesis I want to pass by you, because when he said, I'm going to respect the results of the election, he also said, well, the government must halt the military operations against the separatists. And obviously, if you're trying to run an election, and we know that in the Donetsk and the Luhansk regions, there's turmoil, even just getting the ballot boxes to the regions, there's fighting there, they're going to have to go in and bring down the law to at least try and get some sort of turnout. Well, Putin might say, well, I mean, this election, there's so much violence, I can't respect that election. I can only respect a clean election, which of course he's not going to have with the separatists moving around. It's like he's got them in this catch-22.
That's exactly right, and he may very well respect the vote in Western Ukraine, but say because of the separatists or what danger to the Ukrainian poll workers, that there was no fair vote in Eastern Ukraine, and he may use that opportunity to again try to split the nation in half. So I think you'll see that he may very well respect what happens in Lvov, but he may not respect what happens in Luhansk or Donetsk.
Now, we have elections observers from all different countries going to Ukraine. Some prominent Canadians will be going there. They've been on this program, on this network, discussing the mission out there. Former Ontario Premier Mike Harris will be there. I mean, do you think the Western observers are going to have much of an exposure to the Eastern region? Do you think they're going to be able to play a part in keeping this, as clean or as reputable as can be hoped for?
I mean, that's a very open-ended question, seeing if how willing the Ukrainian forces are to be going into the tougher parts of Slavyansk and Donetsk and Luhansk and some of the areas where you're seeing the heavy fighting. I don't know if they're going to be actually to get there to open up polling stations. There have been some polling stations that have already been attacked that were trying to be set up. So I don't know, especially with public officials, whether it be Canadian, United States, or other Europeans, whether they would risk that, and inverse whether the pro-Russian forces would risk attacking these convoys. So I think you're entering a phase that's really dicey with the vote and with all the Westerners there, and you're basically also having a civil war on the ground right now, where you're having multiple deaths a day in these skirmishes between both forces. That you could have a situation where those kind of observers might get caught in the crossfire, and you could see an escalation.
Now, Boris, I understand that when the separatists took charge of many of the government buildings, they flicked the switch on the television stations, and lo and behold, you can't watch the Ukrainian news. You got to watch the Russian news there. I imagine some people are pleased about that because that's what they want. But at the end of the day, the folks there who are voting in the Ukrainian election, they don't have a clue what's going on. I mean, by default, is this election, I mean, we were talking about the original referendum being bogus. This seems like it's just been set up by the separatists to be completely bogus as is based on all these factors.
Yeah, I mean, they've de facto separated themselves. So in turn, when they don't have a proper vote in the May 25th election this Sunday, they will then, like you point out, in turn say, well, we didn't have a proper voice. We can't be a part of your government. So they've set this up to play that card very, very well.
So, I mean, let's take a prediction here. Let's say Mr. Poroshenko wins, whether first ballot or later. What do you foresee unfolding there in Putin's reaction and just how the Eastern people are a part of it or refuse to be part?
Look, I think Poroshenko is definitely the likely winner, and he will try to get closer to the West. But at the same time, I think he's going to have to figure out a way to deal with Putin and coexist. And I think that's going to be really his trick. And how much influence can Putin have? Today's comments by Putin at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum are interesting in the fact that another scenario is maybe he's back-channeled his way into Poroshenko somehow, and he thinks that he's somebody that he can do business with and kind of continue things as they were under the previous leaders. So that's another, albeit pessimistic, way of looking at it, that maybe he does have people close to Poroshenko that he can count on.
All right, Boris Zilberman, we'll be looking eagerly at the results and talking about it on this program next week. Thanks very much for stopping by with your analysis.
Thank you so much.